Magical Human, and welcome back to the Nature Hold Me podcast. I'm your host, Madison. I am a yoga teacher, student of yoga, and a complete lover of all things natural healing. I am sitting in my new place. This is my new place. I've been in here for 2 days, and I've moved in with my partner, which is really exciting. And yeah, I've moved 2.5 hours away from home, closed up the yoga studio, and a lot of things are changing. So I'm in a lot of period of change. Things are evolving, all these things. So I've actually been so grateful to the podcast and all the things that have pretty much been the only thing that has remained the same. The fact that I show up on camera and talk and teach, that has all remained the same. And it actually has been such a nice grounding point for me. So I'm so appreciative that you're here listening and allowing me to have the space to keep some normalcy in my life. It's amazing. In this episode, we are going to continue on with our 8 limbs of yoga exploration. Now, as a reminder, if you're just finding this series, I have done the first 3 limbs of yoga. There are 5 yama episodes, 5 niyama, those are the first 1 and 2 limbs, and there is an asana episode. So there are 11 episodes so far that you can listen to that have the 8 limbs of yoga woven throughout. The 8 limbs of yoga is the Ashtanga path of yoga. Now, when there is a path of yoga, when we're talking about a path of yoga, it's basically a way you could walk to achieve the goal of yoga. The goal of yoga is a peaceful, still mind. Okay. So when you're looking to create a yoga practice or embark on any kind of journey towards the goal of yoga, there are different paths you could take. There are different twists and turns. This is one of the paths. Now, the Ashtanga path is the recommended path for those of us living in this current world. Maybe you have a job, you have a family, you've got responsibilities, you've got stuff on your plate. If you're that kind of person, you need this path. Other paths are much more simple, but it kind of it basically would ask you to give up a lot of those things. And for many of us, that's not an option, or we're not happy to do that. So the Ashtanga path, as written by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, is the way to go. Now, this path is not as simple as one foot in front of the other kind of thing. It is more a complete practice for you. And you're going to keep referring back to different limbs, to different practices, depending on where you're at and what's going on for you. So just because you may have listened to the first 11 episodes of this 8 limbs of yoga journey, and you've got a basic understanding of what yama is, what niyama is, what asana is, that doesn't mean that you're officially now on level 4 and you don't need to refer back to yama, niyama. Of course, it doesn't mean that, right? These are complete practices, and see it more as a spiral, not as a straight line. It's more of you're just going to keep going around. You're just going to keep moving. You're just going to keep evolving and going deeper into all the different stages of the 8 limbs of yoga. So for today's episode, we're going into the 4th limb, which is pranayama. Pranayama. For this, I'm going to read the Yoga Sutra that is teaching about pranayama. There are a couple of sutras that are teaching about pranayama. For your reference, this is the variation of the Yoga Sutras I am reading. This is the one that is often recommended to new yoga teachers when you're doing your yoga training. This is the one, because the commentary is really easy to understand and it's a really great place to start. So if you're struggling with Yoga Sutras or you want to read a little bit more into the practice of yoga, this would be the one that you would get. Highly recommend. There is Yoga Sutra 2.49, so book 2.49. I'm going to put the full sutra in the show notes below. I'm going to read to you the translation and the commentary from here. So Yoga Sutra 2.49, that firm posture being acquired, the movements of inhalation and exhalation should be controlled. This is pranayama. The commentary: after mastering the posture, we must practice control of prana by controlling the motions of inhalation and exhalation. Now let's take a pause for a moment. Prana could translate to breath, but the main translation is life force, energy. So prana is the life force energy. It's the fuel of our world. It's the energy that makes the seasons change, that somehow makes your body move and work, it's the creational energy. So this is about controlling that energy within you, because we are all moving that energy in some way and we're directing it. A lot of us are not aware of how we're moving and directing it, which is why we might get into certain holes and habits in our life where we can't seem to break out of things. So pranayama, yama meaning restraint or control, it's about controlling the life force energy in the body, and it's often done through breath. Okay, obviously, because the breath is a big life force energy. Continuing. Some people think pranayama means holding the breath in as long as we can until the nerves are strained. No, our breath should be gentle, slow, and fully controlled without any agitation. For example, in the practice of nadi shodhana, the alternate nostril breathing, do it slowly and gently without any retention of breath to begin with. Later, you can go on to retention. Prana is the cosmic force without which nothing moves or functions. As gasoline, it moves the motor car. As electricity, it radiates light through a bulb. Even our thoughts are moved by prana. By pranayama, we deal with it directly and must be very careful. It is not easy to control prana. It takes time. In all of us, there is a reserve of prana. An automobile has a reserve tank which we can open if we run out of gas. God is even more sensible and has given us a reserve tank that is 100 times greater than what we use normally. This is called kundalini, or the coiled force. People talk a lot about rousing the kundalini, but when they can't control even their little day-to-day force, what is the purpose of getting into that? One should only do it after qualifying and preparing himself or herself. It is for our own safety that I say this. At the proper time, this reserve is released automatically. One shouldn't awaken it prematurely by practicing difficult or violent breathing exercises. Now, before we go any further, the word God here, yoga is not a religion. Yoga is not a religion, but it does pair beautifully with all religions, right? So if you are religious or you have a certain belief, yoga will go beautifully alongside your practice with that. Yoga was created in India, so the language is Sanskrit, and the god and sometimes goddesses that are referred to are often Hindu gods. That's because of the place that yoga was created. Okay, and it's good to honor its roots. Always good to honor the roots of yoga. But I want you to understand that yoga is for everybody. And if you don't like the word God, you could use universe. You could use Mother Nature. You can use life. Put in there whatever feels good for you. Basically, life has given you a reserve tank of prana. Now, you may have heard of Kundalini energy. There is such a thing as Kundalini yoga, where they do a lot of different breathing exercises and arm movements and kind of things to awaken prana and basically awaken this coiled snake that comes up from the base of the spine all the way up to the crown chakra. And this is a beautiful practice. However, it is often done at incorrect timings. As Patanjali speaks about here, if you have not learned how to master your normal day-to-day prana, you don't get to tap into that higher source. And when you have mastered the day-to-day prana, the higher energy, the reserve tank, as he puts it, is actually going to just come on all by itself. You're not going to have to force it through breath or weird movements. Okay, so prana is a very sensitive energy, and it is not one we want to go poking with or forcing. Okay, so when we're talking about pranayama, we're talking about mastering the life control in the body. We're talking about mastering the life force energy in the body. The first limb, yama, is about restraint or control, and that's just about controlling the things that you do in your life. For example, the first one, ahimsa, non-harming, trying not to harm anyone or anything, including your own body, trying to live as peacefully as possible. The second limb of yoga, niyama, personal observances, actually learning to observe yourself, practicing such as the last niyama, ishvara pranidhana, surrender, learning to surrender and let go in your body and in your mind. The third limb of yoga is asana, where we start to practice movements and the certain yoga postures that you may have seen. This limb of yoga is typically the most popular. In fact, it's often done and people forget about all the other ones. All right. Asana is a preparation to achieve the goal of yoga. And when you're moving your body, you'll learn to control the movements of the body. You're learning to control where the body sits, the energy flow in the body. Then we move into the fourth limb of yoga, pranayama. Now that you have mastered asana, and mastered as in you're practicing it, okay, we're not talking about, if you can master asana, that would be fantastic. But remember, asana is a comfortable posture, a stable posture. So when we're talking about the word master, we're not talking about you can do all the hardest asanas in the book. People often get distracted with, I have to master asana, I have to do all the most difficult postures. That's not the case. You don't have to do that. I mean, look at people who, maybe if they're in a wheelchair, or maybe if you found yoga in your 60s or 70s, and maybe you don't have a body that's going to do those things right now. Or maybe you've had an injury, and whenever you do wheel pose, for example, it aggravates that injury, whatever it is. We all have different bodies. We're all at different levels. You don't have to be in the most advanced versions of the posture to master the asana. The way I see it, asana is mastered when you're in the comfortable variation for you, so it's the correct variation for your body. You're giving it stable amounts of effort, so you're practicing stability inside your variation, and you're able to keep your eyes focused on the drishti. You're able to focus in the asana and really feel the ground and feel the energy that's rising, the energy that's going wide, the energy that's going down. You're able to connect with that asana. That is a pose mastered. All right, it could be the easiest posture. It could be Tadasana, mountain pose, just standing, right? Just standing. It could be that pose. You can master Tadasana. A lot of people get lost in the aesthetics of yoga, looking a certain way, feeling a certain way. They get very lost in the whole process, and that is not mastering the asana. That's getting distracted in modern distractions and aesthetic distractions that have nothing to do with yoga. So once you've started to practice niyama, you've learned to control your actions, control your words. You've learned to observe what's happening inside of you, and you're even developing some beautiful self-awareness. You're practicing asana and even starting to master, quote, master the postures in the sense that you're feeling comfortable and stable and you're actually enjoying the asana. Now we can start to practice pranayama. There are pranayama practices where you sit and you practice a certain breath technique. For example, I have shared a couple of pranayama practices on the podcast, but lately I've been recording pranayama practices and putting them on my online studio. For those of you who would like to be practicing yoga from home, you can go onto the online studio. It is $33 a month. There are yoga classes, there are pranayama practices, there are asana breakdowns, there are meditations, there is sound healing, there is relaxation. There's all kinds of beautiful things on there that you can find and start to welcome yoga into your daily life, because that's ultimately what yoga is for. It is a daily practice to put into your life, not one that you have to go and attend classes for, or that you have to make room for and travel time for and all those things. We want to integrate it into our life as much as possible. So if you'd like to try a couple of pranayama practices with me, you could jump over to the online studio. The link is below. Jump in, sign up, and I'll see you in there. But one that was even mentioned in this sutra as I was reading it was Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breath. And that's where we're doing this alternate nostril breathing. I'm showing in the video for those of you just listening to the audio. You're going back and forth, left nostril, right nostril, inhaling right nostril, exhaling left nostril, and blocking the nostrils with your fingers. A very powerful pranayama practice, because what we're doing is controlling the breath through each nostril. Your left nostril is connected to your parasympathetic nervous system, and your right nostril is connected to the sympathetic nervous system. Right? So when you're practicing Nadi Shodhana, you're balancing the nervous system in a way that's very direct, straight to the system itself, and balancing it and training both nostrils to remain open and balanced. It's very calming. All right? Controlling prana is about controlling where you're sending energy and what you're using energy for, what the intention is behind that energy. You do this all the time. All the time. Everything that you choose to do, everything that you choose to give your attention, everything that you choose to engage in, every habit, every action is directing prana. And when you start directing prana, you'll find that wherever you've sent the prana, it's very easy to keep that prana going. For example, if you pick up your phone and you start scrolling on Instagram, that is a direction of prana. That you've just chosen to use some of your life force energy to pick up your phone, to move your fingers, to scroll, and to absorb with the mind, with your eyes. That's a use of prana. Now, you might pick up that phone and go, I'll just do it for 1 minute. But how easy is it for that 1 minute to turn into an hour after you've started? How easy is it once you've started cleaning to keep cleaning? Right? That's prana. You're directing the prana, using the prana, and then all of a sudden off you go. You're off to the races. If you start getting angry at your partner, how easy is it just to keep yelling? How easy is it? How easy is it once you start eating chips to keep eating chips? It's all directional use of prana. The thing is, we know how to start doing stuff, we don't know how to stop. And a lot of us are choosing to send our energy towards things that are not serving us. Why would you intentionally send life force energy, the same energy that makes flowers bloom? Why would you send that energy to your phone? Unintentionally, right? If you're there to message someone, call someone, organize something to do with work, do something productive, that's one thing. But just picking it up just to absorb content, why would you send that precious energy to that? How many of us can't master our own habits, our own pattern of speech, the thoughts in our head? We can't even control that prana. And that's why in this sutra, in the commentary, it is mentioned that if you can't even control that, there is no way you get to do Kundalini work. Because Kundalini is the reserve tank of this energy. And I have seen serious issues with people going into that way too early. I've experienced issues with that myself. It is not something to be messed around with. It all sounds very cute and fluffy, but it makes a lot of sense. And when you start practicing it, you start to realize how real it is and how intelligent the system is. So it's very important that we follow the instruction. So you need to have proper pranayama practice, and you need to choose the right pranayama practice for you, and then you integrate it into your yoga practice. It might be something that you do in the morning. For me, there are some practices of pranayama I will not do. For example, Kapalabhati is fire breathing. I won't do this breath because it's very fiery, it's very aggravating. And for me, it upsets my dosha balance, which is an Ayurvedic dosha balance. If you're curious, let me know, send me an email, we can go deeper into these things. It upsets my dosha balance and makes me irritable, angry, and more anxious. It doesn't help me. So for me, I need cooling breaths, calming breaths. So I use Nadi Shodhana a lot and cooling breath a lot. These are two practices that I recently recorded for the online studio, and they are so powerful. Some breathwork techniques are so powerful that they are not suitable for people who might be pregnant, people who might have migraines or have high blood pressure or any heart trouble or even asthma, because it is that powerful. Okay, so I really want you to take pranayama not with just a pinch of salt, just a grain of salt, a little bit of breath work, that'll be nice. Breath is not prana itself, but it is a massive controller of prana. Think of it, your breath is very much your life, right? It's very much your life. It is fueling your life. So we can control prana very well with the breath, very well, but you can also do it with other things. And it's very important that we're not just doing it, just why not? I'm going to do this breathwork practice without any preparation, without any kind of consideration as to how powerful this breath may be. So it's very important that we keep ourselves safe, and we must have some kind of pranayama practice. But if you're very new to it, you go slowly. And if you want to learn more, then you join my online studio so you can do the practices alongside me so that we're keeping everyone safe. And I will always put, if there's any warnings for a breath practice, I will always put them underneath the video that we're going to do so that you can see them and go, okay, I've got to take it careful with this particular practice. Keep yourself safe. Prana is the most beautiful energy. You are already utilizing that energy. It's just that you probably don't know that you are. So you're sending it accidentally out in different areas where it shouldn't be sent. Many people in their asana practice are using prana to think about how good they look. or how good someone else looks, or jealousy. They're sending their energy towards that kind of thing. When you're mastering asana and you're yourself on the mat, that's when you get to tap into moving prana around your body. That's how you can tap into that self-healing mechanism. Prana is healing. Prana is directed by life, by nature, by you. We're all directing our prana. It's very important that we learn how to direct it properly, and then we not throw ourselves into quite deep and powerful prana practices if you've never worked with it before. If you cannot control your daily prana, you have no business working with the bigger stuff. One step at a time. And all of this work, it's inner. It's felt within. You can't see it on the outside. You feel it. So don't even look for aesthetics or what it looks like. Go on the inside. Focus on the inside. That's where you're going to feel prana. That's where you're going to feel the effect of yoga. And when you change everything on the inside, guess what happens on the outside? It's all a mirror. So if you start directing prana intentionally inside, guess what happens on the outside? All just follows suit. So if this is your first experience learning about pranayama and understanding that pranayama is not just a breath practice, it is breath. Pranayama practices, there are breath practices, of course, but listen to it. It's pranayama, life force, energy, restraint. Life force, control. Life, energy, restraint, right? So we're controlling the life force energy in the body and in the mind. You're controlling it. Learning to use it well and not just throwing it around just wherever it goes and just unintentionally throwing energy here, energy there, energy. You're actually intentionally directing that energy. And the breath is one of the most powerful ways to do that. It's not the only way. Your thoughts also direct prana. And funnily enough, your thoughts are also directed by prana. Everything is prana. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions or any concerns, or if this is contradictory to what you may have heard about prana, always feel free to send me an email, reach out. But I always encourage you to if you're curious, go to the source. Go to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. This is where yoga was documented. This is where you can find what the yoga practices are. And as we clearly read before, we've read about what controlling prana does. We must practice control of prana by controlling the motions of inhalation and exhalation. It is not about holding the breath. You can go on to retention of breath once you've mastered the daily movement of prana. All right, so just go here. Don't get distracted by what everyone's saying on the internet, or what, teachers that have not studied enough, or there's teachers out there who have not read this. They have not read it. So how do they know? Go to the source and make sure any teacher of yoga that you're going to has a copy of this around, or even just ask them about it. You'll find out. You'll find out if they've read it, and that way that you know that they understand what pranayama is. So be careful with all these yoga trends, everything. Keep your mind open and follow the path. Follow what yoga is about. Don't allow it to be a trend. Don't allow it to be this weird thing that no one can explain, and this thing that, I'm just going to do my breath practice. No. It's so much more intentional than that, and I encourage you to practice letting it be intentional. If you need anything, I'm always here. If you want to practice pranayama practices with me, go down below and join my online yoga studio, where you can actually bring yoga into your daily life in as little as 2 minutes, 4 minutes. There are tiny practices in there that are unbelievably powerful. Go and find them, practice with me, and I'm always here if you need. Thank you so much for being here, Magical Human. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who you think might enjoy this episode. Anyone who's curious about breath work, anyone who's curious about yoga or pranayama, they would love this episode. Send it to them. Please leave a rating or a review if you have the time to. It really helps me reach new people. And if you can, share it on your Instagram stories and tag the podcast at Nature Hold Me. I've got a separate Instagram account for the podcast. It's at Nature Hold Me. My more personal account, it's still business, but it's more personal account is at Madison_mindset. So go and follow both those accounts. On Nature Hold Me, you're going to find a lot more practices, a lot more detailed teachings, where on Madison Mindset, it's just basically keeping up with Madison. It's keeping up with me, if you even care about that. it doesn't matter, whatever. But if you're curious about the teachings, and go on the Nature Hold Me account. Thank you for being here. I can't wait to chat with you in the next episode. Love.